Hey guys, welcome into the Shadow Box. I am Carlise, your host, your grief and trauma coach, and your shadow work guide. Today with us we have Wade. Wade Simmons is an independent filmmaker from Chicago, Illinois. He has 15 years of funeral service and 9 years of filmmaking. Wade has been affiliated with the pro wrestling industry for about 5 years. Okay, jack of all trades for about 5 years. And 2 of those years, he trained as well as a high school wrestler. Wade graduated from Worsham College in 2018 and Flashpoint Chicago in 2020. I assume that that is a filmmaking school.
Hmm.
Yeah. All right. And Wade's motto is time is always moving. We must learn to move with it. I love that. So, Wade, go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself that I may have missed in there.
I don't think you missed anything. Only thing is I'm a jack of all trade and a master at none of them.
Aren't we all, though, right?
uh,
We are always something in the making with something to learn. So, Wade, tell us about what is your perspective on death? Because you have come into this whole arena from a few different spectrums. So, I want to first learn what is your perspective on death, and how did you even come up with that?
so my perspective on death is that it's a natural part of life. It's something that's out of human control. I think in the sense it's kind of beyond our understanding a bit too. But I grew up in church and everything, so I am a follower of Jesus Christ and things of that nature. So for me, being in church, I kind of had, a pretty basic understanding of it that, we're born here, we live our life, and then we, transition at some point. But I
Right.
went to a lot of funerals as a child growing up in church. And, I just kind of remember, like, as a child, like, you know what? I think this is like really what I want to do with my life. And then my grandfather, who was Hubert Gaffney Sr., he passed away back when I was like in seventh grade, I believe. And so I remember me and my Uncle Tim, we were the only two family members that went to the funeral home to make sure everything was good.
Yeah.
And right then and there, I'm like, I think I can do this. And so I was talking about it a lot in eighth grade, and I remember this young man by the name of Terrence Brown. He was like, "What, you want to be a funeral director or something?" I'm like, "Yeah." And so I just pursued it from that. So like to me, I look at death as like one of those things to where like it should motivate us as people to just, you know that this life is temporary, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. We just make the most of it. And when you think about, time being something that is not going to be on this side forever, it just kind of makes you to kind of look at things kind of, for me, it makes me just be like, you know what, I want to spend my time with the people I love and spend time doing things that are productive.
Yeah. Yeah, and that totally makes sense. And I think a lot of people in the hustle and bustle of life, we forget about that because we're so, as much as we try to learn to be present, some of us are too present in the wrong things. And so
Absolutely.
we get, right? And so we get all caught up in, the bills needing to be paid, the kids needing to be taken care of. What's our next move? What's our career move? Where we're not really being present and enjoying it, right?
Absolutely.
And so, I think that that is a big difference of learning how to live life instead of learning how to always survive life,
Yeah. And you
right?
and what you just said kind of reminds me, like the other day I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw one of the young filmmakers that I knew through Facebook. Actually, we connected in a Facebook group, and I would talk to him sometimes. He would talk to me, and I saw somebody posted like an obituary flyer with him on it, and I'm
Hmm.
like, wait a minute. Now then I looked again. I said, oh no, like that hurted my heart to see that. But he
Yeah.
transitioned, and so like young man.
Yeah.
And so like just kind of seeing that just always kind of reminds you that tomorrow on this side is not promised to any of us, so we got to make the most of it.
Yeah. And it's totally unpredictable. And with it being unpredictable, I think that if we become more aware and more intentional about on the daily, at least trying one thing on the daily to do something that we really like, right?
Absolutely.
And so, say for instance, if like I like to dance and sing and just be, right? If I was to be dancing and singing and just fall out and die at that time, at least I'd be doing something that I like, right?
And you know what? And it
Or
just makes you
something
think about
that,
how life is, because
something
at
that
the
I
same
feel,
time, one of the mothers of our church, Mother Hazel Bracy from the church I grew up. She made it to be 101, and she just transitioned. But I'm like, wow, she did have a full life. 101.
Yeah.
That's a nice good run.
Yeah. It is. And a lot of us don't make it that far. So, and from what you were just saying, and that's a big spectrum, right? So you had a friend that you went to school, filmmaking school with, he passes away early, and then you have your at an early age, and then you have the mother, and she passes it away at 101, right?
Hmm.
So it's like we never know. It could be the
Yeah,
babies that pass away, or you can be 110 and pass away.
absolutely.
But what are you doing in that time of life? Yeah. And so when I was speaking to you previously, we were talking about all the losses that you've had. And so for you to see the young man that passed away here recently, that wasn't your first experience with someone that you knew young that passed away. Kind of tell us about your friend.
So my friend Darius,
Hmm.
who I actually work with, it goes back a long way because me and Darius actually went to elementary school together. He was older than me, but he was actually one of my grandmother's students.
Oh
And I
wow.
remember when I started, working at the funeral home, I got to know Darius a little more than I had back then. But I actually grew up with his sister Darshay. We graduated eighth grade together, so I knew her very well. But Darius, I got to really know him really well working, and he was already a licensed funeral director at the time, and he was encouraging me because I was struggling in school trying to pass the test, and he would encourage me. And I remember one day when I was really thinking about getting out of the funeral business because I was after I had graduated mortuary school, I still was kind of struggling to pass the exam. So I'm like, you know what? I want to give this up. And so I remember Darius called me, and I'm on a metro train coming home, and he just started going over the mortuary science material. Like, wait, okay, I'm about to quiz you. And he was like really trying to inspire me to pass the test. And at that time in my life, I was in film school, so I was like, I'm getting out of this bitch, you
Yeah.
know. But then Darius ended up passing away, and I remember like my grandmother had just seen him because normally at that time I didn't work on Mondays, and I remember one Monday we went by the funeral home for something, and I remember just them we getting a call because I remember like Miss Rosina and Miss Judy and everybody was crying, and I'm like, what's going on? And so they told me like Darius had passed away. I'm like, oh man, like that really broke my heart. Like that really, like, to this day I think about him every day. It just kind of caught me off guard.
And how
Yeah.
did he pass away?
A car accident
Okay.
on his way to work. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. And so it's interesting that how you are like intermingled in this world of funerals and death, because when you were younger, grandfather passed away, and you and cousin went to the funeral home, and what were you doing in the funeral home to say with grandfather to say, hey, I might want to do this.
Well, so my uncle Tim, he actually, because the funeral home that prepared my grandfather, I actually ended up working there years later. But
Okay.
there was a funeral director by the name of Geraldine McCall. She was a very great funeral director. And her husband, Bishop John McCall, to this day, anytime we have anything going in the family, we work with him. Good brother.
Hmm.
And she actually prepared my grandfather. So when my uncle Tim took me in the room and I looked at my grandfather, he was explaining to me how the process went because my uncle Tim, he was kind of close with the McCall family because he went to the church that they, pastored and everything. So that's kind of how we got to know them very well. So, but
Okay.
then too, I also went to church on the south side of Chicago, and there was some funeral directors there by the name of Sharice and Calvin Roby. Those were like kind of the first funeral directors that I really had a more closer relationship with because I actually knew them. And so I
Okay.
remember they took me to their funeral home and showed me around, and and they were really good, like kind of like mentoring and pointing me in the right direction. So I just started meeting a lot of people in the business. But
Yeah.
when I saw my grandfather, I'm like, I think I can do this.
Yeah. And so you seeing grandfather there, and you're like, okay, I think that this is something that I can do. And now we're on the other end of the spectrum where you are working, you're actively working, and we'll go back a little bit to how that kind of manifested in there. But now you're actually working in the funeral business and your friend passes away. And so this is like a lot of, did you start to look at funeral directing or funerals or loss differently from losing your grandfather versus losing your friend and it being all intertwined?
I think yes, because when you're working and you do it for a living, you know, you understand that it happens, but I think when it hits close to home,
Hmm.
it's still kind of a feeling of shock. Like, even if you're in the business, right? Like it's things catch you off guard, because I
Yeah.
know, like, just thinking about when Darius passed away, like around this same time, the church that I attend now, my pastor's wife passed away. She was really dear to my heart. So,
Yeah.
losing both of them kind of like at the same time. And then even like thinking about last year, right? Like there was so many deaths from my former church family, like back to back, like, oh man, from Cora to Brother Delasherman to my other grandfather. So it was just like back to back, just you know.
Yeah.
Then one of the other Sister Queenie from the church, she passed away like right after my grandfather. So it was just like back to back to back. But it's like it is kind of hard because when you think about it, these are people who were a part of your life,
Right.
and people that you remember seeing and having fun memories, and it does something to you, It does
Can
something.
you kind of describe what it does to you or how it's different, how it feels different?
I think for me, it just kind of makes it just always constantly remind me, like, you know what, you can't take not 1 second for granted, you know,
Mhm.
because every second counts. Every moment counts because at any given time, right, like any of us can leave here. And so I think for me, it's like when you're not thinking about it as much, like you said, you're just going through the motion, paying bills, doing this, doing that, just trying to make something happen. But when that hits you, it's kind of like, oh man, like, it's a constant reminder that, like, you just have to make the most of life, and do and focus on doing things that you love. That's what I do, because to me it's kind of silly for me to waste time doing things that doesn't really
Right.
benefit me. Even sometimes, like when I scroll through social media and I see like a lot of people like, oh, I hate this, I don't like this, but to me it's like I would rather use my time to
Right.
focus on things that I do enjoy, because that's a waste of my time focusing on something that doesn't benefit me or serve me. You know,
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
I'm wasting seconds here.
Did you have you did one of the losses that you've encountered, were one of those kind of like a pivotal point where it was just like, I don't think I could do this anymore, or did it continue to fuel you?
It continued to make me realize that I probably should stick with it, actually, because I'm
Okay.
gonna be honest. There was another time I thought about getting out of the funeral business, but then people would call me when somebody transitioned and ask, "What can you help us? Get another funeral director? Can you help us? What should we do? Where should we go?" And every time I tried to get away from it, it's like
Yeah.
something kept pulling me back toward it.
Yeah.
So I
And
said, you
so
know what? I'm just gonna stick with
yeah.
it.
And so therefore we kind of get to that idea of the purpose and the calling of your life, right? So
Yeah,
being a young boy back when grandfather passed away and kind of was the catalyst of what you were supposed to be doing.
yeah,
And with that being said, you also had a near death experience yourself.
absolutely.
Talk to us about that.
So I remember being a little child. It was at a church convention. I think we were in Kansas City, Missouri. I don't even remember how old I am, but I remember that because for years I used to be afraid to swim. And so, yeah, now to this day, I know how to swim pretty good underwater now. But, but at the time, I actually started drowning. And
Mhm.
I remember seeing, like, as a child, saying that I saw like two angels fighting in the water.
Okay.
And it's like, it wasn't like a scary experience. It was unique. And
Yeah.
so, like, I only vaguely remember it, but it's like to this day, like it made me aware that God is real. It made me aware that there are other beings in this world that God created. And it just encouraged me as a young man to find Christ in my life, and just encourage people, but also to help people when they go through their time of loss. But to me, like that experience, I think it kind of really helped shape my life,
Yeah. And
because
I
I was
know
so young.
I'm sorry, say that again.
But I was so young when it happened, and I just never like. I'm like, God really spared me, so it's like I'm just aware that He's real, and I want to be the best person I can be and the most kindest person. Not gonna sit there and say that I'm perfect, but I try to always make sure that from that experience, it taught me that God is real and to always respect everybody, even if people believe differently. Still treat everybody with respect and love because that's important.
Yeah. And would you say that that's where your lack of fear came from for death when you had
Absolutely,
that experience?
absolutely,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I can go in so many different directions with that, but I'm gonna stay on topic here. So walk us through your education when it comes to your funeral directing journey.
So it was a long journey because I went to college around 2011 and I started at Malcolm X College, which Malcolm X College actually has a mortuary program, but
Okay.
I wasn't going to do Malcolm X. I was going to do Worsham College. And so I went to Malcolm X to do my prereqs. Then I stayed there for some time because I had some ups and downs, but I had a lot of fun like at Malcolm X. I met a lot of cool people and met a lot of friends, had some great professors, and once I finished my prereqs at Malcolm X, I had like two more classes that I needed, so I ended up going over to Wilbur Wright College, which is another city college, and I love Wilbur Wright, by the way. Like I think I should have went there full time, but I had so much fun at Wilbur Wright, and I finished my class there. And then there was one class that I needed, and it was funny because like I had failed that class twice at Malcolm X, and
Okay.
so I couldn't take it there no more. So one day I was on my way to the funeral home and something in my mind said, take care of your business today. So
Mm,
I didn't go to the funeral home. I went over to South Suburban College and they gave me the class free.
okay.
And so I ended up passing the class. I had a really good teacher. She was a Cuban woman. She reminded me kind of Miss Morello from Everybody Hates Chris in a way.
Okay.
But she really cared about the students and she really helped us out a lot. And so once I finished that class, I ended up going to Worsham College. And when I went there, I had a lot of fun, met a lot of cool people, but it was hard. It was very hard.
Yeah.
Mortuary science is not it is not an easy course because you're taking see for me like public speaking, that's easy because I do that anyway. But in the religious stuff, that's easy because I study like a lot of different religions and things of that nature. But
Hmm.
and then even humanity psychology, that was easy. That stuff was easy. And then mortuary law was pretty easy. But when it
Okay.
came to like the biology and the chemistry and all that stuff, I needed a little more help with those
Yeah.
areas. I got through it by the grace of God, but it was rough. It was.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna. It was very rough. Yeah.
Yeah. And would you say it was more so like was it the formulas or was it the actual chemistry? Like what was it that was difficult
I
for
think
you
for
in the
me
science?
because it's like with me knowing that in real life, like half of that stuff you ain't gonna never use. Like I knew the
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, like embalming. I know how to embalm. You have to use certain index in certain cases because the embalming chemicals they go off index, like depending on what condition the body is in. You know
Okay.
what chemical you're gonna use. Like you might want to humectant. You might want something that got a little less water in it.
Okay.
So just looking at the condition of the body, you learn what not to use. But again, me, I'm more of a hands-on learner anyway. So
Got
to
it.
me, like, I can it's kind of like this, like when you go to the store and you buy a battery, right? And they have the instructions in there, and those instructions tell you the very correct way of doing things, of course. But
Hmm.
if you've been doing something a long time, those instructions you doing by common sense, right? Like
Yeah.
and so a lot of times we don't necessarily look at that stuff because like we already know what to do. But
Got
it
it.
don't mean that there's not always something new that you can't learn. So I'm up for that. But of course, in school, there's a lot of stuff that you really don't like. For instance, there was a question on the test. This was in school now because you can't put the board material out, but they asked you a question like, "Who was Herodotus, the
Hmm.
father of history?" I mean, you're not gonna sit in front of a family and tell them who Herodotus was. They can care less. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right. Yeah.
but
But you need to have that information to pass that test though, right?
yep.
Awesome. So tell us about, I know that I believe while you were in school or while you were working, you discovered that you had a vocal cord issue, disability. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I ended up developing a vocal disorder called spasmodic dysphonia. And to
Mhm.
tell you the truth, I believe that I developed it from stress because at that time, after graduating again, I was going out to take my exit. I call it the exit career exam because that's
Okay.
what it did to a lot of people. But I was struggling to pass the exit exam. And so then I think from stress and then working in the funeral home and just, I don't know, I think I felt at one point I was stuck,
Okay.
and just, kind of being around grief. And then it got to a point where like, sometimes you got to take a break from doing things. And I didn't realize that at the time, but I ended up passing the exam and everything. But then I noticed that when I was at the funeral home working, my voice was strained really bad. And so
Mhm.
they wait, like, what's wrong with your voice? Like, you sound, because I sounded like a whole nother person. And so I went to the doctor, got it checked out to make sure it was like no tumors or nothing. And they said, no, we couldn't find anything. So I did some research and they sent me to a specialist.
Mhm.
And his name was Black Doctor, Dr. C. Like, yeah, it's spasmodic dysphonia. And so he wanted to give me like these Botox injections and stuff in my throat. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know about that, brother. But I ended up talking to like a voice therapist. And so I did like the voice therapy because what we noticed is that when I'm at work and around the funeral home, my voice was straining really bad. But when I
Yeah.
was out and just living life, I sound like a normal guy. And so
Okay.
it was funny because people thought I was like changing my voice and playing, but I'm like, no, like, I'm a young man who like women. You think I want to talk to somebody like this? Like, I was very self-conscious.
Right.
But eventually, what ended up happening was that I ended up leaving the funeral home full time, and my voice
Okay.
got healed. Like it went away. Thank you, Jesus.
Okay.
It went away. So I know
Okay.
where the stress came from.
So let's go into that, because these are the different stressors of what you actually do behind the scenes. And so, with someone coming in and needing to get services from a funeral home, you guys are behind the scenes and you're doing all of these things. You're working with the families, you're working with the body, you're doing the administrative things, you're working with your employees. What are the stressors that you have experienced as a funeral director that you feel prompted that illness in you?
I think a lot of times, we deal with a lot of young families. And
Okay.
sometimes you get young people who have lost their life due to gun violence and tragedy, and that's a horrible thing. But a lot of times we understand that everybody handles grief a little different.
Right.
And so sometimes you may get families that, it's not so much that, but a lot of times when families are not getting along, they're already irritated about losing a loved one. Now they fighting each other,
Mhm.
and now you have to deal with that because a lot of times, say for instance, you have maybe like let's just say for instance any family, right? You have a family, you have a brother and sister. The sister is 45, the brother is 35, their mother is maybe 75,
Mhm.
and their mother passed away. And the brother and the mother says, well, my son, he was the one that was more responsible, so I'm gonna leave him everything.
Yeah.
Now when the sister come in there, wait a minute, my brother, that's my mama too. He gonna do
Yeah.
it. No, we ain't doing that. He the one paid the bill, but now that's my mother. It ain't going down like that. Now
Yeah.
you're kind of in the middle of that. Like you gotta always be professional.
Right.
But you're in the middle of family drama. That's really and that doesn't make a difference how somebody passed. When you got family drama, and then even sometimes with situations like you're dealing with young people. Like there were some situations that maybe the father and the mother split. They had a young child, and the boyfriend did something to the child, or the
Mhm.
girlfriend. Now you got two young parents fighting, and this your fault, that's your fault, and I don't
Yeah.
want this and I don't want that. But it's like you're in the middle of that. Like
Yeah.
you're not judging any one of these individuals because they both have a valid point. But we live in this world that things are set up a certain way in. From a legal standpoint, you have to always do things in the as long as it's the right thing. You got to always try to do the best thing that's in the situation. And so it's and when you get into legal stuff, that can get a little heavy. But you gotta, if you want to keep your license, as long
Yeah.
as you do nothing wrong, you have to, like, follow the rules. And so a lot of times when you get families that this person is paid everything, which, to be honest with you, whether somebody paid for something or not, you can't take anybody's parent from them.
Right.
If whether they pay the bill or not, they're still their parent. And I
Right.
think personally that people should come together and try to collaborate. But a lot of times it doesn't go. Like, I remember years ago, there was a family, they got into a big fight in the parking lot. And we know that it was over more thing, but like the sister put a scarf on her mother or something like that, and the brother like, take that scarf off her, and
Hmm.
it's little things like that, and so a lot of times that causes stress because they mad at each other, but they also mad at you.
Oh, wow. And
I've
so,
seen.
and with that, it's like, in your profession, there has to be a way that you are setting boundaries, right? So it sounds like to me that the funeral directing is also kind of like psychology too. Like, you're the mediator for these people. But at
Absolutely.
what point do you have to kind of say, hey, I need you guys to come back to me when you guys are at one mind, and then we can proceed with because at the end of the day, what you're there for is to take care of the deceased and not to kind of help the family drama, right? Or
Yeah.
help them
Yeah.
come to terms, right? So did you find yourself at any time having to set boundaries and send customers away because of the conflict that was going on?
Well, the funeral home that I came from, the owner's model was that he's gonna service everybody. He gonna find a way to work it out, and he's a good, well respected gentleman in the community. And he has a gift of encouraging people and trying to. But sometimes you get them families that. And so for me, I learned to stay out of it. I do
Yeah.
the best that I can. But then even with the things that you say, you have to be really careful because you got to remember, like, these family members they're into it with each other, but they're still family. So you really don't want to pick a side because
Right.
they still family. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
That's
it's like
true.
so it's like with me, a word of wisdom would be you got to let them sort out because there are times, like for instance, even with married people, right? Like there was a situation I'll never forget it, where there was a family, and this happens a lot. So this could have been any family.
Hmm.
There was a family the gentleman was married and he died, and I guess he was sick, and the wife didn't let his family see him. And when they came to the funeral, we had to shut it down because they tried to fight her and had to
Oh,
call the
gosh.
police and all that. And then you have instances where people are still married and never got divorced or this and that nature. Then they pass away. They might have had a little money in the wife or husband might say, well, burn them up. I'll just take the
Yeah.
money, just burn. And then they cause a conflict with now they want to fight and all that. So I understand
Yeah.
because people because people love their loved ones, and it's not an easy thing to lose anybody. So I understand it from all aspects, but it's just like it can get stressful in situations like that. And then again, even with the young generation, right? Like, I love my young brothers and sisters, and I wish everybody a happy, long, and healthy life.
Hmm.
It always grieves me anytime we lose a young person, but a lot of times, it's those type of situations can be rough too because it can get violent. People are fighting. You never know, um somebody who might have set the person up even may show up. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
it's 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 a very, very stressful situation.
Yeah. So funeral directing is very people centered. It is very much so the kind of you are a mediator. And what I'm hearing is that it's not so much of the logistics, it's not so much of the finances. I know finances do play a part in
Mhm.
some families, but it's more so of keeping peace within the family.
Absolutely, yeah, peace. Because even like because I mean, there have been times where you have like young men who had, he got maybe 6 or 7 children,
Mhm.
and different baby mothers and things that I done seen it all. It done went down,
Yeah.
and yeah, it be some stuff, but it's just
Yeah.
like we understand that people had a life, but I don't think that's the time and the place for that. It's maybe save it for after that, but I don't even think it's a time and place for either because I remember like there was this one time and this was like last year we had to shut another funeral down and it was at night
Mm,
because a young man I guess he had like two different baby mothers or whatever and his auntie actually in the middle of the funeral home said, "What are y'all fighting for? He gone. He's
yeah.
gone. What's the point?" And I just that just kind of really kind of like wow like but I understand people hurt, so I never, everybody looks at things differently, but it makes you wonder, like, that's just not the time and place for that.
It's not. However, as you mentioned and see, it happens, right? All the
Hmm.
time, a lot of the time. But that also goes back to what we were talking about living intentionally,
Hmm.
right? So when you are living intentionally, when you are living and doing your best every day, doing things that are productive, doing things that are just putting your best self forward, it's going to matter at the end, right? So even though that person is gone, the people who are left, the remnants that are left, how are they going to show up for you according to how you lived that life prior to your death, right?
Yeah,
And so I think that as we think about it, like there's a lot of things that we can do to prevent the backlash of the ones that we leave behind, right?
absolutely.
So
Yeah,
just really being,
definitely because
yeah,
it's not and like I said, it's just like oh, like I done seen it all. I done, and I remember like and sometimes though too, I think that people should have like etiquette at funerals because
yeah.
like nowadays people get up and say all kind of stuff and like you be like, cause I remember like this one girl got up and said he was loved by some and hated by many, and I tell you what, they had to escort her out that chapel too.
Really?
Yeah, they were gonna get her. Yeah, they.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like it's why would you get up and say something like that?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not saying that you got to get up and say everybody was a saint, but just talk about the person, talk about their life, and sit
Yeah.
down. It
Yeah.
ain't. It's like,
Doing a lot of extra stuff.
yeah, it's like yeah, I done seen I've seen a family run the preacher out the chapel before. I see I see the whole lot.
Oh, geez.
And I remember one time it was a family. This was in like I never forget this. This was in the wintertime. They were out in the parking lot at the repad room fighting over some chicken at the repad with their shirts off. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was more than about the chicken, but I guess the chicken
Yeah.
just took it to another level.
And that's one thing about grief too, or the
Yeah,
loss of a person and the shock within it. Because when people lose someone, you do begin that grieving process, but that grieving process goes on for months and years,
absolutely.
right? And so when your brain is trying to when it's trying to adjust to the loss, anything can set you off.
Yeah,
Also, not even everything in the immediate, but everything that you've been thinking about, everything that you've been going through in the past, or you think about that person or whatever. It's like you're always a hair trigger away from taking it too far, right?
yeah. Because you know what?
Like a piece of chicken.
No, but you're right. Because I remember one time this was like an auntie. She had to be like almost in her 70s. And it was the lady's daughter. She had to be maybe like 40 something, the auntie like 70. And the 70-year-old auntie launching out at the young woman, calling her out her
Mhm.
name. And then while the funeral was going on and the girl was talking about how she did all this stuff, her mother, her auntie, like, that's a lie. That's a lie. And they like,
Yeah.
shut up. They're like, you don't tell me. I'm like, oh, like, so it's
Yeah.
like, I'm like, well, auntie was mad, but I'm
Now,
just,
question for you, because you're in what state are you in?
I'm in Illinois currently.
Okay, that's right. You're in Illinois. So have you had experience dealing with different cultures? Or is it
Absolutely.
mainly
Yes.
Black culture?
Different cultures, mainly
Okay.
black, but different cultures. Because I now I remember one family. This was in. They were like Jehovah Witness. One part was Jehovah Witness. The other part was Buddhist.
Oh,
So
wow.
they had the Jehovah Witness part done first, and then they did the Buddhist service right after. Same
Okay.
person, just a different. Yeah, I had never seen that before. But
Yeah.
I think that people are getting a little creative with funerals because there was one day we had like three like blues and jazz bands come the same
Okay.
day, and it was very different. Like it wasn't like sad and kind of
Mhm.
slow paced. it was more uplifting and like more. It didn't even seem like a funeral. It was more of a celebration. You know.
I was going to say a celebration of life. Yeah.
Yeah, but
And no, go ahead.
yeah, but when you're in school, they do prepare you to deal with all types of religion and cultures and things of that nature. But even with that, I always say that every family, even in the same religion or the same culture, is still different
Yeah.
because there are elements that people use and elements that they don't use. So I learned that in the funeral business, everything is situational. You kind of let the family guide you and what they want, and then you meet them there. You know.
Yeah. Do you notice that you see drama across all cultures? Have you seen that?
Uh, I've seen it more amongst us than
Okay.
anything, but I mean, I know other cultures have their issues too at times because money, a lot of culture, everybody, like a lot of just about everybody, if that's what they put their emphasis on, a lot of people fight over money, no matter
Yeah.
what culture. But there are some people who don't really care, you know.
Yeah.
I've seen some people that maybe their loved one left them a charge and they distributed everything accordingly. It was no fights. It was no this. It was no that. Some people got their own money, so they ain't waiting on nobody to die to get it. Which
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
but we know how they can get in any kind of family sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that that is true, like across cultures for sure. It always comes down to finances. You know, it
Mm.
usually comes down to
Yeah.
finances. It usually comes down to some family quarrel that they've had throughout time. And, you know, it's funny because, yeah, it has come out throughout the years, but for whatever reason, when a person passes away, people just feel like it's just free time to
Yeah.
just throw it all in the bucket.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. All right. So this is the day in the life of a funeral director.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
you gotta love it. Trust me, because a lot of people think that it's a lot of money and like no, not everybody is swimming in money. We do this because we love it. We do this
Yeah.
because it's in our heart to serve. Because sometimes in this business, sometimes you're gonna give more than you take. A lot of people don't understand that not all people may have money and things of that nature, but you do the best you can to service people because it is a career, it is a business, but is also a service.
Yeah.
And I hope
And
that anybody would never forget that.
with funeral directing or just having a funeral service business anyway, I noticed that it is one of those businesses that get passed down through generations too.
Hmm.
And so it's like, you know, you always have someone passing away. And if your family just kind of continues with it, like that's a lot of people's legacies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the funeral home that I came from, I think they're working on the fourth generation now
Oh wow.
because Mr. Leak Senior, he is, I think he's about what 88 now.
Okay.
But his dad is the one that started it, and then his son Spencer Jr., Stacy, and Stevie, they're running it now. So yeah, that's the what third generation, so they're working on the fourth now. So
Okay.
I shout out to any funeral home because you'll find that there's a lot of funeral homes that have been around over 100 years or 100 years,
Yeah.
50 to 95 years. It is indeed a family business, and again, it has to be in your heart though. If it's not in your heart, it's probably not gonna last too long. And I
Yeah.
would just tell anybody going into the funeral business if that's what you want to do. It's a great career. You have to know what you can and can't tolerate, but it's a great career if you think about it as a service.
Yeah. What is your favorite part of the funeral business?
I think meeting people
Okay.
because I'm gonna be honest, I'm a people person because like okay, like Elder Roberts, she worked with me for like I've been knowing Elder Roberts now 15 years because
Okay.
she was there when I started and she's been like a mother to me. She's 90 now. She still works too. And and I remember like last was that no, that was this year. Earlier this year, they gave her a birthday celebration. And when I was there, I saw some of the people that I used to see when I was at the funeral home, and I thought about it like when you work at you meet all kind of people. You know,
Hmm.
I've met basketball players, actors. I've met just people doing amazing things. I just love talking to people, and so like I think that's the one thing that I liked about it when I was there full time is that just being able to talk to people and connect with them, and it made me feel good because like a couple of months ago I was at a church at a food pantry with my grandmother, And there's a church that like they give food and stuff to the community. So we went over there, and there was a young brother there. He was like, well, he's older than me, so but I'm still gonna say young brother. But he walked up to me and said, "I know you, man." He said, "You used to work at the funeral home in country." I said, "Yeah." He said, "I remember you were very nice to me, you know." But
Yeah,
I love people, and like and I think that's one of the things that like it didn't really feel like work when it wasn't stressful. It really didn't feel like work because I was
yeah,
always sitting and conversating and talking with people, and you meet all kind of people.
yeah. So, where are you at now in your funeral journey, directing career?
So right now I do what they call transfers, which are removals. So basically, I'm the guy that they would call like if somebody needs their loved one picked up from a hospital or a nursing home or from a house, they would call me or whoever else. So I've been doing remove, and it's crazy because I never thought that I would enjoy doing removals, but I was working at the funeral home so long in house. But once I started getting out doing removals, it's like I think I like this a little better. But I'm also in the process of becoming a fully licensed funeral director in the state of California. I know
Okay.
about like California, why are you going there so expensive? But I feel that I'm led to go there for whatever reason. And so I trust God enough, and it's work there that need to be done too. So I never look at anything like it's not about the place to me. It's just about whatever needs to be done at this point in my life. Then I'm going to embrace my calling and do it.
Yeah, and follow your own path and follow where you're being guided to, right? Because, like we said earlier, when we originally started, the grandfather was the catalyst to you kind of going into this direction. And we always think that where we start is where we're going to end. We always have this grand ending to whatever it is that we're doing. I want to be this. I'm going to do this. But as you do start in your career, start in, being an entrepreneur, business, whatever you're doing, you always find that there are some things that you can continue to take along the way. There's some things that you try out that you're like, I don't want to do this no more. I don't like it,
It's
so
funny
you
you say
drop
that.
it off.
It's funny you say that because that's kind of what happened with me, right? Like last year was really like a roller coaster for me because I left the funeral home full time in 2023, and I was waiting on my license to come. And so when my license came, once I left the funeral home, I was down in Missouri because last year I had lodging in Missouri too. So I was really more down in Missouri last year than I was here. I did a lot of traveling, and I spent some time down there, like months. And like when I was down there, when my license finally came, I came back home, and then I started, I bought my van and started doing removals, and I loved it. I got some of my good friends from high school, and like my brothers, and they helped me, and even my actual brother, they stepped in and helped me, and we loved what we did. We went all throughout Illinois, Chicago, other parts of Chicago, Matson suburbs, Hinsdale. We were all over the place, just providing a service, and
Yeah.
I love what I'm doing. So I think I found more of my passion there. And so I'm grateful for it. Like I said, I spent a lot of years working because at one point in my life, every Saturday, every Friday, I wasn't at home. I was at the funeral home working. So like
Yeah.
it's like when everybody was out enjoying their weekends, and I was at the funeral home all day.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't regret it because it's what I enjoy doing at the time. And I still enjoy what I do, but it's just, like you said, where you start is not always where you finish.
Hmm.
You learn and you grow, and, maybe at one point, I go back to it, but I think that you have to be able to endure, and you got to be able to be, available, because in the funeral business is about availability. It's not, even though some people do have it as a 9 to 5, it's not really a 9 to 5 business, because what happens if you get ready to walk out the door and the family say, I just lost my loved one, you know?
Yeah.
You don't want to tell the family, oh, I'm ready to go home to my family.
Yeah. Come back
You
at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
that's not the type of this. You may have to go the extra mile, and to
Yeah.
me, I just learned to embrace that. So like I always say, like even now, like now that I do removals, it's not always consistent. But if I get it, like I can be in the middle of anything, be at the store or playing basketball or be at a pro wrestling show, and then can you make a remove for me? I got you.
Yeah.
Unless
Yeah.
I'm out of town, then But other than that, if I'm able to help, then I'm gonna be there.
Yeah. So now we're going to move into, and we're going to kind of come back the the funeral portion of it. But you also have kind of taken a journey along filmmaking. So let's talk about that because I am really wondering if these two worlds are going to collide eventually. So talk to us about your filmmaking.
Yeah, so two things I always wanted to do as a child: to be an undertaker and to be a filmmaker. And God bless me. To God be the glory to pursue both. I didn't know that I was going to end up going to film school, but when I was struggling in mortuary school, I finished. But in order for me to get the actual degree, I had to pass the exit exam. And so while I was in the process of passing the exit exam, remember I said, well, if I don't pass this exam, I got to do something. So I'm like, maybe I go to school for something else. So I thought about being a veterinarian. I went to the hospital to see the dogs and the cats, and I love pets, but I don't think this is for me. Uh,
Yeah.
I ended up going to Vegas, and my uncle, he owns a plumbing company out there, and he's a master plumber because my grandfather was a master plumber, and he taught my uncle the trade, and my uncle took the trade, and he's making a difference there with it. And
Yeah.
I remember like one time we was at somewhere, and one of the workers did something, and he had to go to this lady's house, and she was chewing him out.
Yeah.
And the lady, she was chewing him out, but me and her was having a whole conversation. Like she like, and then when she got through after he fixed it, because his company is doing really well, but when after he fixed it, right, she says, when you come back to Vegas, make sure you come back and visit me. He like, I went to the lady house and she chewing me out and waiting, just talking to the lady, but I know that's, and I'm like, you can't run from that way. So I'm like, you
Yeah.
know what, plumbing is just not my, it's not my,
Okay.
it's a good skill to have, but it's just not me. So I'm like, I remember praying, and I'm like, Lord, I'm gonna go back to school, but if I'm gonna go back to school, it's gonna be for something that I really love. And
Right.
so film school came up, and so I ended up enrolling at Flashpoint, Chicago. Now this is the funny thing. I remember the owner of the funeral home saying to me, "Why would you go to school for something else and you didn't even finish this first?" But as soon as I enrolled in film school, I
Hmm.
passed the funeral director test.
Awesome.
I was still literally like while in film school, I was still going out to Wheeling, Illinois to get, because one thing about me is like whatever I start, I have to finish it. Like
Hmm.
I'm not, because first of all, that's a lot of time and money spent, and that's
Yeah.
time I can't get back. So I it's like it worked out. And then after I finished film school, I ended up going back and I passed the embalming side of the test.
Okay.
But to get back to the filmmaking, I've always loved film. I was a very big George Lucas and Spike Lee fan. I love watching shows like Martin and Fresh Prince back in the day. Hanging with Mr. Cooper, that was one
Hmm.
of my all time favorite shows, and so I always like enjoyed storytelling. And then I used to write poetry and write a lot of stories as a child, and I used to love like making cartoon characters. Like my dad, he could draw, I couldn't draw. I just would imagine the characters and tell him what to draw, and he'll draw.
Okay.
Like we made all kind of characters. Like we had a jackal named Jeremiah. We had another female jackal named Jackie. A penguin named Pipsy, named after my uncle. I had all kind of, but I love making characters, and so when I went to film school, I just started producing short films right away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us about one of your or a few of your short films.
So I do have two web series now. One is called Love Always Wins. The other one's called Together. That's my newer one. But Love Always Wins. It actually came about because my first episode was supposed to be a different actor playing Wade. It was about him failing in mortuary school. It was called Repeat,
Okay.
and and so I did the episode. But what happened was the main actor didn't show up. So I ended up having to step in and do the part. And so when I stepped in and did the part, I just started doing the part ever since. And now we have like probably over 25 episodes. I haven't put
Good.
all, and they're not all perfect, but I just stuck with it, and I
Yeah.
love storytelling. And so Love Always Win is like, it's basically like a short web series. Like it's like a romantic type of family style thing. It's more like visual poetry now. Like it became something different. At first it was going to be more like an actual narrative series, but they ended up becoming visual poems,
Okay.
because I feel like when you talk about love, I feel like it's a good way to express it through poetry. So I
Yeah.
just combined the two. So yeah, so Love Always Wins now it's just a a series of short visual poems. You know, some are narratives, but it's cool. I would encourage people to check it out and see what they think. But my new series, Together, also is a series of about love. It's about a multiracial couple, husband and wife, and it's just love poetry, you know. And
Okay.
then I'm moving more to becoming a documentarian because I really love making documentaries. I'm also in the process of finishing up my documentary of my journey into pro wrestling, and so I just I just went to the show last week and filmed a little bit and took some pictures, and so I'm excited
Okay.
about that. But I really like documentaries because I love people telling their stories. I nothing against narrative films, but I feel like documentaries are a lot more fun because you get to be with an actual person who is being their actual self. I
Yeah.
mean, you got to have lights, you got to have the camera, but for the most part, it's taking somebody's story and just giving all kind of visuals to it and letting the world see that there are a lot of people out here who have been through things and overcoming things. And I don't know, I'm like I've grown to really enjoy documentaries more.
Yeah. And I think that if people told their stories more, right, then they would be more relatable. You know, a
Absolutely.
lot of people who are in the world, even though they see so many people going through things and, everything is just so external, but it's like when you do have these documentaries or people are telling their stories, you realize that there may be a few people who are like you, right? Or
Absolutely.
who are experiencing the thought processes that you're having, even though the experience may be different, right?
Yeah, and you
And
learn.
so I think that doing the documentaries, I think that's really good. And you do have a way of talking to people and meeting people where they are, and you've had these experiences with a diverse spectrum of people, right? So you can talk to anyone and get people to tell their stories while kind of directing them on the flow of it, so to speak,
Absolutely. Yeah,
right?
and that's a beautiful thing, like to be able to, meet people and hear them tell their stories. Because, like, again, like people have a lot of unique stories, and you would be like, I never knew they went through that. But I think it's
Yeah.
just a good way to connect with people, and so I'm moving more into making documentaries. That's kind of the path that I'm choosing to take, and I'm excited.
Yeah. Do you think now that the world of funeral directing or loss or grief or anything of that nature is going to coincide with your filmmaking?
Possibly. I
Okay.
have made a documentary about a funeral director who was one of my teachers in school. I would encourage everybody to check it out and see what they think. But I really just I don't know. Like I put it like this: like in a sense, they both are the same as far as storytelling. Because when you think about being a filmmaker, like I like my first role as a filmmaker was actually on the professional scene was producing. I didn't know that at the time that that's what I was going to mainly like doing, but that was my first role on a film called The Future Lasts Forever. It was producing. And when you think about a producer, right? Let's combine with a funeral director. A producer is somebody that pretty much connect all the pieces. They bring
Hmm.
the people together. They help get the funding. They help they help organize. They help kind of make sure everything is in place.
Hmm.
And that's kind of along the same line as a funeral director, because a funeral director, all the funeral director does is family. Okay, you want this, you want that. Where you want to have it at? We're gonna make it happen this date. We're gonna get this together. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. Make sure everything is kind of going along. And so when you think about it, funeral being in a funeral business, because what is a funeral, right? It's a celebration of life, and what is
Hmm.
life is somebody's story of the
Right.
things that they endured and the things that they overcame and the things that happened within that time frame they were here. And so even with filmmaking, right? Filmmaking is storytelling. So to
Yeah.
me, they both are the same in the sense that it's all storytelling.
Right. Yeah. I love it. So and you have, this is on YouTube, correct?
Hmm.
Okay. So you are,
Well, most of my stuff is on Vimeo, but
okay.
I do have some stuff on YouTube that other
Okay.
people put out there. Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to send us your link for Vimeo and people are going to be able to watch your short films. I love it. Wade, if you were to have any advice or direction for up and coming young funeral directors, what would that be?
I would say find a funeral home, volunteer, see how you like it. learn as much as you can, but also get the books before you enroll in school. Get the books early and learn the correct way of doing things, and learn what you can from other people, but also just give yourself all the information you need. That way, when you go to school, it won't be as bad.
Mhm.
Because and then too, because you got to understand that, like for me, I was working in it before I even got into the program, but a lot of times I wish I had got them books a little early.
Yeah,
So I would tell anybody, get the books early and pay attention. And I think if that's what you want to do, go for it. Make the journey as easy as possible for yourself.
got it. Yeah. So wait, from where you started to where you are now, and you are how old?
I'm 33.
33. So still very much so a young man. So you being 33, can you tell me if I ask you who you are, what would be your answer? So who are you, Wade?
I would say, more importantly, a child of God always first. But I'm just a young man, just trying to be creative, and hopefully, God willing, when I get old, I can say I'm an old man, just trying to be creative.
Okay. All right. I love it. All right, Wade. So what do you have coming down the pipeline? Do you have anything that we should keep an eye out for?
Yes,
What's going on?
so I have a new web series called Together coming out. It's starring myself and another young actress by the name of Sarah Fortis. Very great person. She's really kind to work with. And then my pro wrestling documentary, we're finishing that up. So that's going to be out soon too. So be on the lookout for those two projects.
Awesome. And all his links will be included in his bio under the podcast. So you'll be able to get in touch with him regarding all the services that he has and his short films. And I think that that is it, Wade. I thank you so much for coming into the shadow box and sharing your expertise and sharing your story with me. And like I said before, when I had spoken with you, I mean, you're a young man and you have come very far and you've had a lot of successes and accomplishments in that time, right? And so I mean, funeral directing school is not an easy task. Film is not an easy task. And for you to be a young Black man in Illinois, to all of the things that could be against you, I'm just so very proud of you that you've done everything that you're doing and that you continue to be productive,
I
right?
appreciate that. That means
Yes.
a lot.
And
Yeah.
in your journey to California, California is a big, wide place and it's a wild place. And
Yeah.
I just encourage you to keep your kind, authentic heart because you are very much so a very authentic person. And just don't lose yourself there, but be the greatest that you could be there while you're there, right? So I'm looking forward to seeing some things from you.
I appreciate that, and we definitely got to stay in contact. I keep up with everybody that interview me. By the way, I think that's
Awesome.
it's important because I feel like we all one big family and we all help us one to another.
Yeah. Service, service, service. All right. So, everybody else, thank you so much for coming into the shadow box. And until next time, namaste.